Alright, hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I wanted to go ahead and make another follow-up video on Nightmare of Decay before I kind of move on from the game, because I have uploaded a entire playthrough if anybody's interested in that, and then I uploaded my previous video going on about why I think Nightmare of Decay works. So, in today's video, I wanted to go off of something I had mentioned in that video, which was kind of like a breakdown of what I think is going on in the game. So, in Nightmare of Decay, it's pretty obvious that the game's intending you to believe that you are playing through the events of a nightmare, which I think is partially true. I think that there's more going on at hand with the story, because something interesting that goes on in the very beginning of the game is before you go to sleep, you hear word from the news that there is multiple disappearances happening. And shortly after, you see a vision of a character who is seen in your dream later. Which is interesting because further on, you enter your room, and then once you're in your room, you see your computer. And on your computer, you see a scene that is directly from, like, later on in your nightmare. So there are direct correlations between your game and your nightmare. And while that does make sense because a lot of dreams take from things that you as a person know or have seen, um, there is something that goes beyond that, that is like a lot of this like theory is speculation, obviously, because there's not a lot to go off of. But one thing I think that does happen, and it's my theory for what is going on in Nightmare of Decay, is that when you see the computer screen and you hear about the news story of people going missing, you can kind of put those together and almost, or at least I did, come up with the idea that this game that your character has been playing in some way has influenced dreams in not only you, but other characters, and has this almost supernatural ability to pull those people into the dreams. Because later on in the game, while in your dream, you hear word from the cat specifically that other people have been pulled into the dream. And you also meet other people who have been pulled into the dream. And you can only assume that those people are the people who went missing. And the people who went missing, you obviously find in the game either dead or dying, and they aren't lucky enough to survive, unlike you. If you get through the entire game, you get to the ending, which, let's just say, kind of gives me insight into who I think is orchestrating this. Because I think that the game itself, that is within the game, like the game within the game, is having this almost supernatural power, and I think that it's honestly, despite coming across as a helpful character, run by the cat. The cat in this game is a very interesting character. Because first of all, the cat displays itself as almost a helpful companion in a sort of way, and I don't think that's true whatsoever, because this cat has way more information than it should. Because if it's just a cat within the universe, first of all, why is it talking? No other animal really talks, I don't think, that I can remember. Like, there is the bunny creature later on. Doesn't talk. I mean, it's absurd health-wise and attacking, but that's just besides the point. So the cat, first of all, can talk. It's like a minor thing, but it can talk. And then it also knows of the situation that you are in, which I think is a curious thing, because nothing else in the game, other than those people who were supposedly pulled into this nightmare, mention that. So either I'm under the impression that it would either be like a person who was pulled into the game and maybe just got unlucky and was a cat, but that's not true, because it holds like almost like this sense of like knowledge of the universe, because it mentions things like how you don't seem like you'll fare long, which means that it understands the threats like following. There is like, once you enter the dungeons, the cat shows up again, like from seemingly nowhere, which, first of all, like, let's just get it out of the way. How is this cat getting places? How is it not dying? It's a cat, but whatever. So you have to assume that this cat has some sort of like knowledge of what's going on, because you get to the dungeon and the cat's like, yeah, you're not going to make it past this. Like, you've either been lucky or you're just good, I don't know. But the cat has more knowledge and understanding that it's letting on. And I don't think that's coincidental. I think that the cat, especially considering the end of the game, which I will talk about now, the end of the game is interesting because it's sort of a cliffhanger in the sense that you get to the very end of the game, you defeat the Lord of the Nightmare, and then you wake up immediately. And it's odd because when you wake up, you are able to leave your apartment, as seen in the gameplay if you've watched my previous video, which I strongly urge you to if you are confused about things I'm talking about. So you have this ending where you essentially escape the nightmare, and then you leave your apartment and you're like, I need to take a walk, is what your character says, kind of thing. And then you walk out, and then you're walking down the hallway, and at the very end of the hallway you see a red light, and then you go down and you turn the corner, and then out from the darkness the cat appears, and the cat says something relatively cryptic. It's like it kind of calls back to something it says earlier, like nothing escapes the nightmare or something to that degree. And I don't think that it's because the nightmare is after you. I think it's because the cat doesn't want you to. Because the cat falls back into the darkness, and then a creature resurfaces out of the darkness to attack you. And I think that that creature is the cat's true form. Because I think that the cat is the orchestrator of these nightmares. Whether or not that relates to the game, I'm not sure. Or how it does, I mean, more specifically. Because I think that the game is the thing that is like the how do I say? It's what's like containing this almost like entity like of the cat. Because in a sense it's like almost like a disease. Like you play this game and you're infested with the disease. And the disease gives you these nightmares and it pulls you into the nightmare. And then those people who are pulled in either have the idea or the chance to live, which a lot of them don't, or die. And the cat is almost like a sort of character that likes toying with you almost, because it gives you the opportunity, it gives you the chance to live. But then once you do, it's almost surprised, because again, it does say that it's unlikely you live, and that it's mostly luck that you are probably getting through this. But once you do get through it, it's almost as if the cat gets upset, and it says that you can't escape the nightmare being itself, and you don't escape the cat because the cat comes for you, and it escapes the nightmare almost with you, I feel, because there is no evidence of anything besides that odd occurrence of you seeing the chainsaw man in your room in the beginning of the game, where the game is outside of the nightmare. So it's almost as if like I can write that off as you genuinely being tired, which is what the character says in the game. I can almost do that. But To say that the cat appears afterwards, I don't think it's a part of the nightmare. I think you genuinely wake up at that point. I think that somehow this cat, this entity that is orchestrating all of this, somehow escapes with you. And I don't know how it does it. I don't know what's going on. Because I almost think that it's in a situation where by you escaping, you pull that disease almost, and I guess in a way, like I'm trying to rationalize like a comparison. So like let's just say you go somewhere, you get a disease, and then you leave that area, you pull it with you, no matter what. Like you survive, yes, but you bring it with you, and then in the sense that you brought the cat or the orchestrator of the nightmare with you to the real world, where it can now have an effect on you outside of the nightmare, which is scary, to be honest, to think that you cannot escape, because that is what the cat says. Like it's like, yeah, I told you there's no escape. And it's like, at that point, what is it that you could have done? And while I will say that ending isn't the best because it is very open. That's what I don't like about it. It's almost too open, but at the same time, it does give me the idea where I can make an inference because there is some information given to you. Because I do think that what you see throughout the game is genuinely from the game you played, like the character played. I think everything from that is just taken by the cat almost to be given to you in your nightmare as almost like a way to manifest itself, if that makes sense. Because the cat helps you along throughout the parts of the game. You would think that this cat wants you to make it, but then once you do, it's ripped away from you. There's only, like, I can't think of any other reason for the cat to do that other than the cat not wanting you to escape. Maybe it helps you along, maybe it likes watching you, but then once you get there, it's over. You've lost its support, then I guess. So, I guess to try and put it cohesively and simply, Nightmare of Decay is a game where you play as a character who has played the game that you are currently playing as a player in the game, and has manifested a vision specifically, of a character from that game. And whether or not that is something caused by your character's sleep deprivation, which is what is written off as, or because it's manifesting itself, because this cat, this entity, has the power to do so. It's hard to say, because there's just not much information given. I want it to be where this entity, this cat, because it takes the form of a cat, has the ability to manifest itself through a dream and influence your dream to the point where if you escape, you bring it with you. Because it's almost like, I feel like that is the only reason I can rationalize the cat wanting to help you, is if the cat gets out and then it killing you afterwards is to, I guess, secure its place, and then to say that it's just its last laugh at that point. Because it's almost saying, like, I told you couldn't escape, but it did, if that makes sense. It's just so hard to say with how little information you're given in the game, because there's obviously, like, the story of what's happening in the actual nightmare is relatively self-explanatory, because it's just saying basically this lord bought the manor, had a bunch of bad stuff going on because of the dungeon, because he found a hole in his wall and he went crazy, killed his servants and wife, whatever. And then to give him the name of the Lord of the Nightmare almost feels like a cover. Because what power does he have? He's just a crazy guy who found a basement. Ultimately, like, what power does he have? I think that the cat is using him as sort of like a distraction, a ploy, a way of distracting the player from the true threat, the true danger in this nightmare, which is the cat and its power. I just think that it's very interesting how little story you're given beyond what is actually in the nightmare. And then with what you have, you can come up with these ideas. Because, again, this is just me gushing about this game because it's a very good game to me. But it is so interesting that I have come up with an explanation to the story with what little information I have, because that little information is enough to like, I guess, get me thinking, to influence me to come up with an idea of what is happening in this game. It's just hard to say if I'm right, because ultimately this game's, 3 years old now? Maybe almost. And as far as I know, there are no answers. And it sucks. I would love for a second game if, like, there's any story that can be expanded on there. But ultimately, I'm not sure what more you could do. Because this is a great game, and leaving it open-ended like that does create that question, and it's up to the audience to answer that question. And I think that's very interesting, and I like that about it. But my theory is that the nightmare is what... So the nightmare you find yourself in is what is causing the disappearances. Other people are being pulled in to this nightmare that is caused somehow by the game that they have played. Because the game itself is what the nightmare is, if that makes sense. And to say that somehow the cat plays a part, the cat having its own power to pull you into a dream and then ultimately escape only to kill you to secure its place in reality, is interesting. It's almost like you gave this entity, whether or not it's from the game or not, its power to leave where it's stuck, I guess. But ultimately, it is hard to say, again, what the story truly is. But that is my theory. And I hope it's interesting to other people, and maybe you guys agree on what it could be, because I think it's plausible for the most part, considering, like, its obscure nature of the game by itself. And it is a game. Like, let's just say, like, it's a game we can, like, break logic a little bit. And I just think it's a very interesting thought. I think it's a very interesting theory. And I just haven't really seen much of this game, and I wanted to give my own input on what I think is going on. So I hope that you all enjoyed, and I hope that you found the theory interesting like I do. And if not, or you have any disagreements or whatever it may be, go ahead and leave a comment and start a discussion. But in the meantime, I will see all of you in the next video, which will probably not be Nightmare of Decay, so don't worry about it. But yeah, I'll see you guys then. Bye.